Yeah, I don't think I have that straight, but it's kind of in, so I'll fix that after getting this one in. Like I said before, this one's going to be fun. Find the edge of it. Oh, right there. Right there. But even though I can see it, it's still going to be difficult. And all right, starting over. And the reason why is because this plug, I wasn't happy with it. And I don't think it goes on the front. It actually goes in between the 2 points that drop down and goes through that and then up the back side. Pretty sure that that's how that goes. I got those 2 screws in before I realized that, and those 2 screws, the ones that I was showing you, was wrong. Those plastic screws go somewhere else. Another thing, I positioned this a little better. That's going to have to kind of be pretty close to the right position at the moment that at the moment that you plug it in. And fighting with it a little bit, this rubber tore on me. I don't think that's a big deal, but kind of an indication as to what's going on here. So to do this again, I believe, maybe I'll flip it up this way. Of course, it's got to be down in there a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm threading it through so it comes out in the middle of the back here. It kind of makes sense because I disconnected it from that side and I thought I had a pretty good view of it. But like I said, I didn't like how it was sitting there. I didn't remember it being there like that before. This will tighten me up a little bit. Maybe I was right the first time. Sometimes like the curve of the wire will indicate how it once was. So, based on that, that is the curve of the wire. If I thread it through, I'd have to bend it differently. that's not how it goes. Well, that's fun. I had it and I took it apart. So I'll just, I guess, redo it. So I'll put that back in. I guess if there's any saving grace, it's that I was able to get that other lower hose angled correctly. Alright, so thread that one down there. Thread that up in there. Make sure I'm not crushing anything. I mean, it makes sense because the part of the wire that was kind of tore does rest on, it does rest on the manifold. So again, I think that makes sense. Alright, this hose is pretty close. I'll angle it a little better. And I think that I gotta get this as close as possible before I actually plug it in. I'm just hoping that that goes together at the end pretty good. I did loosen these cables here, give me some more wiggle room. So eventually I'll do this the right way. Men in blue getting it done. Alright, my pause it here while I screw those two in. I had to really fight those two. I don't have any good advice other than don't lose the screw. I'll show you which screws those are because I got that wrong the last time, but it's these metal ones. So in other words, it's plastic down here, but there must be, I didn't even look closely, but I think there's a metal grommet that's fused into the intake. So then you just gotta get down in there and get those two screws put in, and then that harness is in. So then it's 2 screws for the harness, hose plug in at the bottom, of course your nuts and bolts across the top, and then we need to go through and find all the connections. Alright, I'm having a tough day. I dropped the bolts twice. No, I'm not talking to you. Dropped the bolts twice, and well, if you count that plastic screw, I actually dropped something down there 3 times. Oh, and then I dropped my flashlight down there, so that's a 4th time I dropped something. The wire that I was thinking snaked through the back actually comes up through the front. There was another wire down below I didn't see. That was the one that came up. So I guess the order of events of this is to plug that in from the bottom first, then Then I guess I did well, plug that in from the bottom first, snake the hose down to the hole, then snake this under here. Then I tightened the wire harness bracket. Then I snapped down the bottom end of that hose, and then I snapped in this little hose here. So I guess what I got left is these intake elbows that come up this way, and the screws across the top here. So I think that's what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the screws in across the top. I'm going to kind of pause and make sure I have all of my connections before I continue on. Alright, I think I'm going to wrap up for the day. I'm having a few struggles. I should have put this on first because of this bolt back here, but I can still reach back there, and if I have to, I can maybe pull this off enough to give myself some more wiggle room. But I gotta clean that what is it, the oil filter housing. I gotta clean that out, and I'm out of brake cleaner, so I use a whole can of brake cleaner back here and up front here. So I did take the belt off, and it's so cruddy down there that like the crud kind of filled the grooves of all the pulleys, so I got to make sure all those are clean too before I'm all done. So we'll pick it up tomorrow, clean that thing out, and then wrap this up. That alternator, I'm not really able to put in. I think I can set it in place and maybe use the screws to just hold it in place temporarily until I get new bolts. And then we can jump to the other side. So I think that's it. Well, here we are chipping away again. I got the gas, actually I got this all cleaned up real nice. Let's see, get that in the camera there. Inside and out. This little thing pushes down. I got up to the edge there and inside the edge there as much as I could. I got real good inside these grooves here. It's kind of, the lighting here isn't the best. Maybe it probably helps a little trying to get that glare out. But anyways, you just need a pick again. Need a pick to pick out the old one. And then I cleaned real good inside of here. Like I really spent a lot of time inside of here. I was just trying to see if I could pull this back up without damaging it. And I guess it probably wouldn't hurt it. But in any case, it's really clean in there. I got my pick in there and tried to get some of the crud. Some of these videos I've been seeing, they're not as bad as this. I've been trying to get as much of this crud off as I can everywhere I see it, because this, like I said, this has probably been due for well over 100,000, well, maybe 100,000 miles. It should have been done. So oil everywhere, just cleaning it up as I go, making the parts as clean as I can. Got the new gaskets in here like I explained in the previous video, so that'll be nice. And similar to that, this one sits a little bit high. It's not perfectly flush. The old one actually has kind of a top edge a little bit, kind of actually I'm not really sure now that I'm looking at it. It almost looks fatter, but like it was kind of mushroomed over the top, which does make sense because this will probably mash down once I clamp it down, and plus over time, heat and whatnot. It's just that this part right here on the original gasket is a lot wider than what the new one is, and that separates the oil and the water. Well, the oil and the water. And so I guess I would prefer it look more like that, but I mean, what do you do? It's the gasket that I got, and I've seen it on other videos. This is what their gasket looks like. So I think I got this at I think I got this one at O'Reilly's. I got this real clean. It was really bad right down in this area. I'm not sure if that's a common area that where maybe there's excessive heat or maybe gravity or something makes it all pull this way or whatever, but the coolant runs through here. So I was kind of wondering why this was a sticky spot. And I saw that a lot of people were saying that, you know, the oil leaks from here and it drains this way and it drains that way. And that's what I have, oil everywhere over here, which I got most of it off. To get the lowest areas would require some additional work and some bloody knuckles from this angle. I gotta draw the line somewhere, but I got a lot of it. And anyways, I used a Scotch, and I just took a little brake cleaner like on the corner, and I didn't want to saturate all this because this is coolant here, so you don't want any oil in there. Anyways, I think this is ready to go. I'll go ahead and put this on. Looks like maybe start at the bottom. That's what one person did. This bolt back here, I think I will have an easier time getting that in than other people because my alternator is out. I screwed myself because I should have did it before that went in, but at the same time maybe I didn't because maybe that went in a little bit easier because this was out. Hard to say really. In any case, it could get a little tricky in here. If I remember correctly, I have to use my universal socket for this one because I think it might be too tight. I don't remember. Also a swivel socket might be good, and I think I gotta go grab that. But for the moment, I'll go ahead and just plug all this stuff in, and should be pretty straightforward. One guy started at the bottom, so I guess I will too. I didn't really hear an explanation for why, but maybe it was because maybe it was for nothing, and maybe it was the easiest bolt, which I actually don't think is the case because I don't think this is the easiest bolt. And I'll go ahead and hand tighten these all around. I did not see, I researched, I looked, but I did not see any torque specs for this. All I saw is one person just tightening it by hand. So I have the shortest bolt for the bottom here, and it wants to go in crooked. So anyways, let me go ahead and get those threaded in. All right, I think I know why they start with the bottom bolt. That's because you get a lot of interference from this hose right here trying to get a socket in there, unless you have a short socket, which I'm not even sure if that's a thing. But basically it's very difficult to get on the back side with the socket. I think he was using a 8mm ratcheting wrench. That seems to work pretty good, but I kind of have some trouble getting that in there very cleanly too. So I'm using my universal right now, and it'd be good to get this in because with that bolt sticking out way down here, it's difficult to negotiate this hose. So this way I can actually pull the housing away from it and kind of keep this bolt close to the, well, to whatever that is, the mounting point. All right, ready to put the second bolt in, the top one. Just a quick note, you may have seen me snap that in. I didn't have that in all that great. I actually pulled this out, made sure that was really in, and then put that in. It didn't seem right, so I messed with it, and it wasn't right. So should be right now. I did see that somebody, good idea, maybe put a, they worked around the cap. I'm just going to plug the hole just in case nothing wants to get down in there. Thought that was a good idea. And so I believe this one is the, oh, you know what? Hold on. All right, I'm losing my mind. For a moment there, I was thinking I had to replace these bolts, but I didn't on this one. All right, anyways, continuing on. So go ahead and thread this one through, and then we'll do the last one here. See how difficult that ultimately is. Again, we're using that E10. Keep a little wiggle room until we get that last one in. And it is a rotten egg. Not sure how easy or difficult this is going to be. I have to move this light. Do this a little bit blind. Well, kind of blind. Let's see what I'm aiming for. This is right behind here. And this hose is in the way, but having the alternator out makes it a little easier. Looked like everybody was struggling with access to that bolt. And I guess, I don't know, you could struggle for a little while, or you could spend $10 and take the alternator out and replace the bolts for $10. I guess that's your call. I just gotta grab a longer extension, because I think I can fit it through here. That's what everybody else seems to be doing. And I'm not trying to, you know, be better than anybody else. This is more of an example of a real world situation where somebody who's outside of their element, you can see what happens or whatnot, you know. Sometimes though, I have noticed that there's a lot of things that people aren't saying that I am, so I'm hoping we're getting that out of this. I need a swivel. I should have had that handy. And actually, the swivel is for a 1/4 inch, so I gotta switch to my 1/4 inch. Actually, that makes it more complicated. I have to switch to the... that could be a problem. Hold on. Alright, so ultimately I used the 1/4 inch extension, the 1/4 inch swivel, and the 1/4 inch universal. That actually worked pretty good, just for threading it through here and having just enough bend to work with. So now I need to tighten them all down. It just looked like, make them tight. That's all anybody seems to say about it. So I'm just gonna make them tight. Alright, I thought that was a good idea to get it started at the minimum, the way that I said with this, with the socket, but it seems to work pretty good to get a 8mm in here and just sneak it by right here. That might be a way to get it off. Now that one is starting to get tight. I wanted to kind of make sure they're all about the same tight before I really tightened them down. I'm going to try really hard to use a better... This is not the... This is not the ideal tool. But like I said, I kind of wanted them all to be about the same. This one was a little tricky getting on, but not too bad. imagine we're squishing down that gasket. Alright, so let's use, I'm going to use this swivel, see if that helps me down here on this lower one. And you know, for this job, you know, I may recommend, oh, that actually makes it harder. The thickness of this won't let it get by that hose. But for this job, I might recommend trying your best to find E-sockets that are not as wide as this, because the width of these sockets are making me use these universal ones, which I really don't like, because I don't know, it's just not made for it. I mean, I'm sure it's fine, we're not really crushing it here, but it's only a 1/4 inch drive socket, or a wrench, socket and wrench. I almost wonder if I can. Oh, maybe this is better. Maybe this is worse. Maybe it's not possible. I was trying to do it from above the hose. It's like just inchworming my way around here. I might see if I can't figure out a way to use that E-Torx. Well, it seems to be okay, I guess. Now I have a Matco wrench. These are nice because they have extra teeth in them. That becomes important in a spot like this where you have very small range of motion. You don't want like a single click each time. You want a couple if possible. So, just saying. Ends up being worth it. Or if you get like an air wrench on it, or air ratchet or something on it, it'd be better. Alright, so what do we say? Long extension, swivel socket, universal. Because I think if I use the adapter and the regular E-Torx, it's not going to fit. You know what? Maybe it will. Maybe that's worth trying. I got it right here. It'll either work or it won't. Because we're not turning it straight up and down. We're using the swivel. So using the swivel, it's harder to get. I mean, it's turning it, but it's putting pressure on it kind of awkwardly. So it's not the best. Still using the 1/4 inch though, but I have the adapter so I can get this socket on it. I'm hoping that's the ticket. I'm gonna move this light. Might be a little too bright. Actually, that'll work for me. I think this is just crazy enough to work. I'm not really sure. I think that again, this is bumping into the underside of that, and I really don't want to mess with that again at this point. That's all put into place, so we'll just do it the way we did it before. I may have to use my ratcheting wrench, because it seems like I was able to get better contact. Yeah, I don't like that. It's too floppy. And then this ratcheting wrench is very similar to that universal. It looks like what, a 12 or I don't know, multi-point. Yeah, maybe 12 point. So sink it down there again. I'd be done with this if I did this before. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. So, you know, this is a kind of a cheaper ratcheting wrench, so I only have like 2 clicks. I may try to one last attempt to get an actual socket on this. All right. Well, I tried it a number of different ways, and actually the way that worked the best for finishing this off was to get my hand under here and get the wrench like this, and I was able to pull it down with a decent amount of force. And so all 3 of them are pretty much as tight as I can make them. I didn't crush them, but at the same time, 2 out of the 3 were done with these 1/4 inch and small tools, and the top one was done with this. I suppose for consistency I could have used the small tools for the top one, but anyways, they're all as tight as they should be, I believe. So from there, I believe I'm just going to, barely even dirtied my rig, put that back in. I have drained the oil, so I have a filter and some oil to put in still. But for right now, I believe that part is done. There's actually, maybe not quite, there's a plug. And let me just take a second and double check those. Alright, just a quick refresh, or I had to refresh that the plug for this is over here on these on this injector rail. So that's that, and that one's, so this one there and this one there. So I had to kind of look back and see where I was at with things. These 2 I think go on the top of that, on top of this. And so anyways, those are going to be free for a little bit, because I think I'm going to keep that like that because it gives me just a little bit more room on that side. So next I got to do the alternator. Alright, I got the alternator in. I did try to put it in the way that I took it out by kind of rolling it in. That didn't work. You can do that coming off, but you can't do that going on. I already have my bolts snugged down and torqued. They do need an additional 180 degree turn. And just wanted to, most of you might know what a torque wrench is and how to use it, but I thought maybe I'd just go over that real quick. I borrowed my buddy's torque wrench because it measures in inch pounds. I found one at Menards for like 65, and I found one at O'Reilly's for like 22. But free is the best if you can pull that off. In any case, this one on this side is in inch pounds, the other side is in kilogram centimeters. I've seen kilopascals, and inch pounds and newton meters. I would assume that if you are a BMW tech, you probably would have to have maybe 1 or 2 of these that measures in newton meters, because everything that I convert or have looked for the values, the conversion values, they're in decimals. So I prefer round numbers if possible. This one is 10 newton meters, and so that translates to 88.51 inch pounds, basically 88 and a half. So on this wrench, and I don't know how well this is going to come up, but I can more describe it. But anyways, Um, it measures in, hold on. All right, yeah, so I kind of see now that I did mess one little thing up, but no big deal. In any case, in the inch pounds, there's 80 inch pounds mark. Kind of a, I don't know if I can do it, like a line like that with the 80 mark on the side. So you want to adjust this so that it's at 0 and the top of this edge is lined up to, you know, where it goes up and then levels off. That leveling off is where the 80 is. You want to zero this out, put it to that, and then count off 8.5 points. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Interesting because it's in inch pounds, so I don't know why there's only 10 digits. It's kind of interesting. Maybe the spaces between them are different. It looks like between the 0 and the 1, that space is a little bit wider, so maybe that accounts for the 2 missing inches. In any case, you want to set it to, 88.5. Let me just double check here. 88.5, and when I did this, I had it on the kilogram centimeter side. I didn't notice that, so this is a little bit tighter than what I currently have it at. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. For this torque wrench, this one is a 1/4 inch drive. My E sockets are 1/2 inch, so I need a adapter to step it up to the 3/8 size. Like I said, I thought it did feel a little bit light, so I'm going to change the light here so that we can see this a little bit better. But they're all threaded in and ready to be finished off. I think that's visible. All right, so, and then again, if you're not familiar with how a torque wrench works, this is how it works. So right now it's probably pretty close, but we're going to tighten it a little bit, and as soon as it clicks over, that's the desired amount. You can see that. Must be really close to what I had it before. I don't think it's a real big deal on this. I think the biggest thing is to not break off the bolts, because they're pretty flimsy and soft. So, all right, it's basically giving me the same information. Let me just double check here. Well, anyways, it must be really, really close. So, to each other, the two different numbers, the nano Newton meters and the, oh, what was it again? Kilogram centimeters. So at this point, I need to give it a 180-degree turn all the way around, and also you're supposed to kind of, skip around, start somewhere and go across. I think I went here, 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 something like that. Grab my 3/8 inch. I suppose you could do one big fat 180, or you could do 2 90s. So in the down position, there's 1, there's 2, that's done. There's 1. There's 2. And, again, this is not like it's holding fluids back or anything. So if it's not, perfect, I think I'm kind of going more like 80 degrees instead of 90, just to kind of round out. I really don't want these bolts to break. So there's 1. One guy had said that he
he just always reuses them, never had a problem. I would think that would be a disaster in the making if any or all of these bolts were to break off and the tension on the belt were to grab it. It could pull that in, and plus you have cords attached to it. It'd be a mess. So anyways, last one. All right, and that's all four. At this point, I have to rotate the tensioner using a T60 Torx. I'm lucky I have this. It's the largest one on my cheap set that I have. I did a practice and prayed to God that this wouldn't break. It didn't seem too bad. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure that my belt is in its right position before I go ahead and try to do this. I gotta slide it. Hold on. I gotta slide it below. I mean, I had the belt off, and I did rinse the belt off just to make sure it was clear of any debris. I did see, or I did actually hear that the belts themselves can degrade if they're coated in oil. And so I'm just gonna thread this through. I'm gonna kind of hold the belt in position to make sure it doesn't go off. All the pulleys turn except for the one on the flywheel, or the crankshaft. I think that's the flywheel actually. That one doesn't turn, so once this is on, it's not going to turn at all. Just make sure this one down here wants to not stay on. So again, you got to kind of hold some tension, on it to feed it through. So I don't know if I can do this with one hand. I'm gonna try though. This might be easier with two people. Alright, here goes nothing. So what I'm doing is there's kind of like a point for a socket down here. Kind of difficult to see, but that's for your T60 to slide through. Down in this area, and that's really bright for the camera, but anyways, that's where you do that. So again, I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna put the light over here so I can monitor this belt, make sure it doesn't go astray. And then, like I said, here goes nothing. It's not a ton of force required to turn this. Okay. And of course, the belt wants to come off. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go around this pulley and then thread it through the alternator first. And then I'm going to try to slide it over that. Helpful that some of the pulleys move. See, it keeps wanting to jump the tracks on that lower one. may even start with the alternator and then work it around. Maybe I'll pop it off this bottom one. Again, making sure that the belt is in the grooves the way they're supposed to be. It's not a bike chain, so I wouldn't trust that if it's close that turning the engine on would draw it on. I highly doubt that would work. It'd probably shred your belt. Alright, so now I have a little loop. I'm going to set this over here because I think it's affecting the quality of the camera work here, but I have a loop right next to the tensioner down there. Oh, can you see that right there? Not really, the hose is in the way, but basically tensioner is right there and there's a loop of belt right below it, so I'm gonna rock the tensioner in and slide the loop on, and I think that wraps it up. So here we go. And that worked pretty good. I'm just gonna double check that the belt is in the right position all the way around. It looks good. It feels good. This one down here looks good. Alright, well I think that's it for the alternator. Everything looks good. So I have except for the fact that I have like a plug. Let's go ahead and do that. Maybe I'll change the angle of this light a little bit. So I have this battery is dying. So I have this plug here that just goes up top here. I think I'm gonna feed it behind these hoses. Make sure it's not dirty on the inside, it looks fine. I'm a little concerned about some of these plugs getting gunk in them. I half expect a code to pop up when all is said and done here. So I think what I'm going to do is slide this through and then pop it on. Alright. Yep, you'll hear the click. And then I have a ground. That's down here, that I put down here somewhere, right next to the actual ground posts. Okay, so that just requires I think it was a 12 millimeter. And then that job is done. The only other plug that I have down here is this one. And I think that goes to that sensor that was up on the air box. Yeah, so I think all my connections are accounted for on this side. And there may be like, oh, I see one more down here maybe. Yeah, that intake elbow has a socket, so I gotta find that. Oh, it's right here, so I guess I could just plug that in real quick. But anyways, so yeah, one more bolt and that alternator is done. So maybe on removal, you know, nothing really fancy here. But if I were to do it again, maybe on removal, I would loosen that tensioner just to make it a little bit easier pulling it out. The other thing is, I was trying to make a point to remember this. There is this little bracket up here with a hole in the top. That's where this clip was supposed to plug in. It's a retainer. You know, I can't really, maybe I can get my fingers in there. kind of slid down. You can maybe see a little arrowhead pin, so right now it's upside down, but I just got to rotate it and snap it in, and then that'll flop around less and maybe make a little bit less noise in the cabin. I never really had a noisy car, but every little bit counts. He designed it for a reason. I still got to put this piece in, but it's just pop it on and tighten the collar. And then I could finish putting this hose in. It's just a matter of popping this in right here. That's how it came out. And that's good. This might make me reopen it. This is just like a little retainer. Keep it from bouncing around. Hopefully this doesn't break. If it does, a zip tie would work. No sense in running to the dealer for a stupid little part like that. You know, it's not super critical, but you may notice how cruddy this is. I mentioned it before. I saw that these things can be replaced. They're cheap. That's for the power steering. As far as I can tell, there's nothing really wrong with it. To check the level, it just needs to be halfway between these two lines, which it is almost exactly halfway at the moment. So I guess I'll just clean it up and keep an eye on it. It looks like there's a couple of videos on how to change that out. They're recommending draining, you know, the fluid, and then just to keep it clean, less messy, whatnot. But I think I'm just gonna wipe it down and call it good. I've thrown a lot of parts at this. I gotta draw a line somewhere. Leave that for the next guy. That'd be a nice easy job as a first repair to a first BMW. So if it's your first BMW and you see something like that, that'd be a good little project to knock out, and then maybe that improves your power steering. I did replace my rack at one time. Actually, I replaced it twice. A couple different reasons for that I won't get into. I think I talked about it earlier, but basically I don't really know what exactly was wrong with the rack the first time, but maybe there was some pressure and it backed up, and I'm not sure. In any case, like I said, I'm gonna leave it. This could be from prior issues with my steering rack, which has been replaced twice. Probably 50-50 on whether or not I had to do it the second time. By sideswiping a curb, I just, on the right side, I, bent a few suspension components, and I suspected that the rack was bad. I just wanted to eliminate the possibility that that's what it was, so I spent the $600 and put it in. And then, like I said, this could be related to the issues that I had at one time over there. So, like I said, I'll just clean it up and watch it. Other than that, I'm going to just button up a few things. I'll keep the air box out because I may change the filter, or at the minimum blow it out if it's not too terrible. And then jump to the other side. I cleaned like crazy this whole front area here. I may ultimately pull these out. I believe those are solenoids. It looks like it's pretty easy to get out, a couple of bolts. And then I've seen where they take, I thought it was transmission cleaner, some sort of cleaner that's not like an engine degreaser. So I'll double check that, but this has to do with the idling. And my car did kind of, on the RPMs, kind of sit there and do that. It wouldn't just be flat, just sit there and kind of, not be, I wouldn't say flutter, but just not 100% perfect. And it sounds like
the problem might be over here. Not that it even really is a problem, but if a little bit of cleaner makes it even better, let's just do it. That I don't want those to go bad, and there's so much gunk in here that I wasn't really able to get to as far as cleaning goes, so it might be a good idea just pull those off just to be able to finish the cleaning, because this is all really clean right now, and I'd like to have it present that way when I go to sell it, as clean as possible, even though some of this is covered with the intake tubing. You know, if somebody pokes their head in there and starts looking around, I'd like them to see a nice clean engine. So, you know, there's also this little bracket down here that's holding this hose. Looks like a couple of E10s or something like that. I might just undo that bracket because there's a bunch of gunk on that bracket, and just give that a cleaning and get behind the bracket and just kind of finish off some of this. So another reason to not finish this airbox air intake assembly pieces. All right, so I'll button some of those things up, and then I'm gonna jump to the other side. I have to clean the valve cover gasket on the inside still, and I need to do a little bit of cleaning on the head itself. So yeah, I think that's about it for right now.